Another important term you need to know is the term modulation. Basically, a modulation is a transposition that happens inside a song. Now, a typical place to modulate would be if you want to boost at the last chorus of a song. So say you've been going along. One of my favorites is, in Shout to the Lord. And you want to boost for that last chorus, you just jump up a key, transpose it up a key. So basically a modulation is a transposition that happens inside of a song. Now there's two different types. There's pivot modulations and there's phrase modulation. Basically a phrase modulation is like that one in Shout to the Lord, where there's no pivot chord. There's no chord that tells you, hey, we're going up a key. It just hits you right on the phrase. And then this boom, next phrase, you're up a whole step. You get about 50-50. There's 50% phrase modulations, 50% have a pivot chord called a pivot modulation, which basically means there's a cue in the harmony that tells you that you're going up. Now the typical cue, there's lots of them, but really all you're going to do is use those cadences that we talked about in the earlier chapter. The easiest one to go to is that authentic cadence. Remember we talked about the authentic cadence is the 5-1 cadence. It's the cadence you hear the most in music. Pretty much, if you decide where you want to modulate to, and you use the 5 chord of that key, it'll always draw you where you want to go. It's the easiest pivot chord to use. You can use lots of other complex methods. There's some great ones talked through in the book. But that's the simplest one. Just take the dominant chord, the 5 chord of the key you want to go to. One important thing to do, be sure that you don't crash with the melody. Like say if we were going to put a pivot chord in that moment in that song. Let's get back to... Okay, so I'm in the key of B flat and I want to get to C. If I hit this chord, that's the G chord that's going to pull you to C. But you know what? The melody is here. So that pivot chord is going to crash with the melody. So that pivot chord is not a good choice. A better choice would be a G11 chord. Because look, the melody note matches perfectly in there. There's the melody note, so if I play a G11 chord, it fits perfectly. So that's the one thing to check on before you do a modulation. If you're going to use a pivot chord, be sure that it doesn't crash against the melody note that's hanging on there. Make sense?